Hi, I am Sarah Alexander, and this is my Module 3 Special Education Interviews. I interviewed a para, a teacher, and an administrator. The para that I chose to interview is currently on her second year, as a para in our building. The teacher that I interviewed is in her first year in our school. She has been a traveling special education sub for many years. She has a lot of different experiences. And our administrator is in her second year as our elementary school administrator. She is very knowledgeable. This is her second year in elementary school in particular. She was previously at the middle school level. When discussing the child find procedures with the paraprofessional, she mentioned that when it comes to identifying students, a lot of times she is in classrooms observing students that might be in need of some additional support. She might be in the classroom during some push-in minutes with another student, and this gives her some really good observations as far as other students that might be in need. She's not officially part of our student intervention team. In fact, she has only attended one meeting, and she would love to be more involved. This para in particular is really student focused, and she likes to be involved. And overall, she mentioned that she would love to be a part of the process. When I interviewed the teacher related to child find procedures, she is a member of our student intervention team. She attends all meetings that involve the age group that she works with. She is currently working with our second and third grade students, and her philosophy is to intervene prior to qualifying. She likes to put a couple of different interventions in place prior to the evaluation to determine whether or not that need is there. She also feels that educating staff on the different characteristics that they should be on the lookout for is very important for identifying students. When speaking with my administrator, she is a part of our student intervention team. She attends every student meeting, and part of the identifying process that she really discussed was including the multiple tiers of intervention, and that's an important part of working with students to see what level of need they will need. We have a flow chart in my building of the SIT steps and the process that needs to go through in order to identify a student. So that can be a bit gray. Most of our teachers prefer information that is black and white, but this area is really very gray. Currently, with finding and identifying students that are in need, we have a lack of resources in regards to testing students. We only have our school psychologist in our building once, just part-time. The most challenging part of the para's role included the lack of time to collaborate with teachers, the lack of time to plan for students, and the lack of substitutes. And it was interesting because all three, the para, the teacher, and the administrator, mentioned to me that the collaboration piece is such an important part, but it's one of the areas where it's a struggle finding the time to collaborate and to plan together. The teacher mentioned the struggle with balancing teachers, students, staff, and parents. She feels she has a very integral role in connecting all of those pieces. And the administrator agreed with that. When I spoke with her, she talked about supporting the gen ed teachers and the time-consuming process of the evaluation process, and that it might take a couple of months from the moment that you see a student need until the child is evaluated or even qualifies for special education services. And along with the balancing of the teachers that was mentioned by the special education teacher, the administrator also mentioned that being a mediator between adults is very important, and it can be a struggle working for what is best for students might look different based on your role. She had mentioned to me that, what she thinks might be best for a student might be different than what the special education teacher believes. So that can be a challenging part of her role. All three, the para, the teacher, and the administrator, said that seeing the growth in students is the most rewarding part of their job. All three also agreed that working together with those that are supporting students is also extremely rewarding. I really appreciated when my administrator mentioned that seeing that the students are happy at school, regardless of the struggles that they have, is one of the most rewarding parts of her job. The teacher did mention that completing paperwork is very rewarding for her because it's very time consuming, and it can be such a relief when that paperwork is completed. I appreciated that all three, the para, the teacher, and the administrator, really focused on students. As far as advice on supervision of special education staff, when meeting with my para, she mentioned that she reports directly to the special education teacher rather than reporting to the administrator. And she said that for her, she knows the importance of confidentiality, so she wants to have an open and honest relationship with the teacher in order to maybe share some of those things that she can't necessarily go home and, vent about at the end of the day. Another interesting aspect of our para is that she is a parent of students at our school, so that creates an extra layer of the importance of confidentiality. And the teacher really encouraged some additional training for paras and teachers in both the general education setting and the special education setting. Really, all three mentioned that it's so important to educate everyone involved for the success of the student. And in addition to this, the administrator really talked about listening to the concerns of the para and of the teacher, and giving them the time that they need and showing them how much they are appreciated. When working with parents, I was unaware of this, but our para mentioned that she does not communicate at all with parents, and that is an expectation that she does not communicate with parents. And prior to this, I didn't realize that that was the case. The teacher has a vast communication strategies that she uses with parents. She really thinks that communication is key. So she emails, she makes phone calls, she speaks in person. There are some students on behavior plans, and they are sent home a behavior plan every single day at the end of the day, alerting parents to know how their child's day was. The administrator really focused on building relationships as soon as possible with parents, and that those relationships need to be built on trust. And she says that that's one of the very first things that she does as an administrator, is really build those relationships with parents. When working with regular education, the general education teachers, it sounded to me as if all three believed that this was very tailored to each specific teacher and their teaching styles. For example, the para is in many different classrooms. In some classrooms, she is able to co-teach. She works collaboratively with that teacher. Other teachers are not quite as open to the co-teaching aspect, and there's not much collaboration that's going on, so it just kind of depends upon teacher preferences. All three really focused on the importance of that collaboration piece. And the para and the teacher both mentioned being advocates for students with the general education teachers. When speaking with my administrator, she really mentioned that this is an area for growth. Sometimes there is the sense that a student is in special education, so that is a SPED student, this is a Gen Ed student. And when we do that, when we use those words, it really takes away the responsibility from the general education teacher, and it really excludes that student. And that's an area that we are really working on because we are a village, we are a community, and we work together for the good of our students. When it comes to advice for a first-year administrator, the para really suggested looking into having a substitute. She felt as if the lack of a substitute may show that maybe the para is not, the role that they play is not maybe as necessary as other roles in our building, when that's not the case. Paras are extremely important, and they serve a lot of our students and serve a lot of the minutes that are included in IEPs. The para also is very active. She would like to be included in decisions that involve special education. And then she would also encourage the administrator to allow for extra collaboration time in which the para is able to attend. The teacher really suggested that administration get to know the staff. Don't jump to conclusions, and then being open to change. The administrator really said, watch, observe, learn as much as you can. Don't be afraid to ask questions. She mentioned that this is an area where there's a lot to learn, and we need to feel comfortable in learning alongside our teachers. When thinking of the special education teacher and the administrator, the para mentioned that it was unclear in the beginning whether or not she should be reporting to the administrator or to the special education teacher. As of now, she currently reports to the special education teacher. The teacher believes that working together with the administrator is a very important piece to the success of the job. Working with an administrator that supports the decisions, and especially if there are behavior concerns. A lot of our students that might have academic needs may also have behavioral needs, and this is where a collaborative relationship is really key, and in supporting each other's decisions. The administrator mentioned again the mediator role between general education and special education that the administrator can play. So that's a very important piece. And when looking at an administrator, every person that I spoke to mentioned the supportive nature. Every staff member wants an administrator that will support them, that trusts them, that's very understanding, takes the time to get to know them, takes the time to get to know their teaching styles. They share ideas. They are open to learning new things. They build relationships. All three, the para, the teacher, and the administrator, really agreed on some really key characteristics that are important in administration. When reflecting on these interviews, I really truly learned a lot about the different roles that these three people play in meeting the needs of our students. And I learned a lot, especially from our para, as far as her opinion on education and how she is in special education, how she is so devoted to our students and wants to be more involved, but based on the structure of our day, that makes it very challenging. So through this module, I have learned so much about the communication piece, building relationships, asking questions. In an administrative role, I can ask these questions so that the staff feels part of the team and that we can really work together to meet the needs of our students and for all of our staff to be happy and fulfilled. And I feel like just starting the conversation is a great first step to really invoking some change. So thank you for listening to my video.